Welcome to Exhausted Sparrows Unite with your host, Krista Jones, and my sidekick extraordinaire, Chantel Schaefer, as we talk a little bit today about rebuilding your life after everything falls apart. Because life doesn't always go as planned. Sometimes it completely falls apart, whether it's the loss of a loved one, a divorce, a career change. Whatever happens, it's these, oh my gosh, what now moments. But here's the thing. Falling apart doesn't mean staying stuck. It means finding a way to rebuild piece by piece, even when you have no idea where you should even start. So today, Chantel and I are going to talk about what does it even take to move forward after everything changes? Like, what does that first step look like? The unexpected lessons that we learn in hardship. I know that sounds awful, but it's so true. And why resilience isn't about just bouncing back. It's really just about building something new. So Chantel, I warned her before we did this one. I said, I need you to really absorb because this is going to be hard. This is going to be vulnerable, and welcome and thank you for still saying, all right, I'll jump right in.
This is scary. This is heavy.
This is heavy stuff, but that's what we're all about. We said this when we started the podcast that we want this. I said podcast. Did you hear that?
Podcast. We're very proper British.
We said when we started this, like, we have to really dive into things that people don't talk about and things that we don't talk about. And, we all look like we're so great on the outside when we're anything but on the inside. And like, this is a heavy topic, but we all go through something in our lives that is a loss. And I think sometimes people think, oh, well, I've never really lost anybody, that has been close to me that I've loved. And that's not the only, there's millions. There's losses of friendship and there's losses of careers that we thought, were going to be what we were doing 20 years from now. There's so many things in our life that, derail along the way. And it's really important to dive into that.
It is. It's a part of everybody's life. We all experience it in one way, shape, or form, whether it seem insignificant or not. It's still a loss, and you still have to find a way to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I think that we have to kind of look at that. And I think it's really important if you are going through a loss right now or have gone through some type of a loss and you're struggling with, how am I going to put one step in front of the other? I think you have to look back at that chapter and realize it's not the end. It's just a plot twist that is going to change everything.
A plot twist. I like that. See, I'm always like, when one door closes, another opens. But plot twist is definitely a very appropriate turn of phrase for that.
Yeah. And I think it makes you look at things in a different light, right? Because sometimes you think when a door closes, you think, oh my gosh, like, something is slammed in front of me and now I don't have any other choice. I have to walk into the open door. And I like to use the word pivot a lot because it was given to me during COVID. And I keep it on my desk. My friend Beth Corso got me this little magnet that says pivot from Friends, the couch episode, which I absolutely love. And I keep it wherever I go because I think the first step to all of this is to realize that what you think your life is going to look like is absolutely not going to turn out exactly as is. We have this whole dream and this whole plan, and it just isn't. Life is not perfect. There's going to be a million things that come our way. So I like to say it is a plot shift, right? A plot twist when we, lose, when a job, when we're fired from a job, when we have a breakup, when we have a death of a loved one, we have to realize that, yes, we're not where we thought we were going to be. So we have to reframe our thinking, which we've talked about in other episodes, in order to figure out, well, now where are we going?
Yeah. And sometimes you don't do that immediately. Sometimes you have to take a minute. You have to wallow in it. You have to feel it. You have to let it burn for a little bit.
You have to sit in the mess.
Yes.
Right?
Own your mess.
You have to own it. You have to sit in it. And I like that you said that because, a lot of people don't do that because we live in a culture that kind of avoids discomfort, right? We live in a culture where on social media, we say this almost every podcast. It is a theme for us here. We see, all these people that are doing so great and wow, they just moved on from this or they moved on from that. And oh my gosh, things are so wonderful. And a lot of times our first instinct is often just to numb it, right? Look on social media and see how better our life can be, dive into substance abuse, say I'm fine, like Krista Jones does, and own it with a t-shirt. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but we really are supposed to sit in the mess. And that for me is uncomfortable.
It is very uncomfortable. One of my favorite quotes, and I keep it saved on my phone, and I'm going to read it, is one thing I've learned is that life is a paradox. In order to heal, you must hurt. In order to love, you must break open. And in order to have peace, you must face chaos. Never regret any experience in your life because it is always meant to bring you balance, and the light always follows. Wow. I know, and I keep it. And when I am feeling just on the cusp of where am I going and what am I doing and why is this happening, I read it. And I know that I'm there for a reason and I'm feeling this for a reason. And it's generally so that I can grow from it.
So that you can heal, right? Because if you don't sit in it and you don't absorb it, how do you grow from it? I mean, that's a really good point. You're not going to learn anything if you just numb it.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think about a wound, a real wound, if you don't clean it out and sanitize it, it's going to fester. And if you don't clean yourself out, it's going to fester. And it's going to infect all areas of your life.
That's true. Like we need to be able to say that we're not okay because all of these losses, they're big losses. They're in all these different areas of our life, but a divorce is a huge loss. It's the loss of your partner, somebody that was at one point your best friend. It's, the loss of friendships. It's the loss of a job that maybe you thought you would have forever and you weren't ready to give up, even if you didn't love the job, to be fired from a job. Like there's all of these losses and you do have to heal in that and you do have to sit in that and you do have to, if there is ownership, take it. But sometimes there's not ownership and then you got to give yourself grace. That is a great point. This is why Chauntel Schaefer is not really sidekick Chauntel Schaefer. She is kind of like leading co-host. I'm giving you a new title now. I am. You have run up the ranks to co-host extraordinaire.
Ooh.
But avoiding the emotions too only prolongs the suffering, right?
It does, because you're just, again, another phrase, you're putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound.
Yeah.
It's not going to heal.
And I do that all the time. So I am here to tell you, if you are listening to us in our Exhausted Sparrows Unite podcast all the time, that's what I do. Because, for those of you that are like, I don't even know why you have that title. We have the title because we have a charity here called Sparrow's Nest, and we feed individuals and families throughout their cancer treatment. And, we see a lot of heavy stuff here and nothing ever goes the way we are predicting here because it doesn't with a cancer diagnosis, the people that we feed, and it doesn't behind the scenes because we kind of think, oh, this is the way it's going to look when we walk this out, and it never happens. And I am it's fine, I'm fine, it's all fine kind of person. And I can tell you that if I don't sit in my mess, it is a reality check for me further down the road when I do the same thing again, because I haven't sat in what was bad about the situation or what I've done wrong. And it's not only a reality check, it just prolongs the suffering because, right, I don't want to deal with whatever the ick is in that situation, but it just compounds the thing. And then sometimes Chantel will be like, hey, what do you want for breakfast? And then I'll just cry. And it's really because I'm not sitting in the mess of something 4 months ago. I'm not crying because I feel frumpy and I don't want to eat the bacon, egg, and cheese because I didn't lose the weight. Like, I'm really upset because of something else, some kind of a loss that I haven't mourned, some kind of a thing that I haven't done. And there is so much to be said in sitting in the mess and really trying to clean yourself and scoop yourself out of that moment.
Yeah. And sometimes you do that alone, and sometimes you need somebody else to be there with you. Even, my husband, and I love him dearly, but for a long time, he was always trying to help and offer advice and suggestions. And I would get so angry because I didn't want help or suggestions. I just wanted to be with my person, and I just wanted to feel my feelings and feel sorry for myself in that moment. And he's learned that. And now when I'm in that space, he just hugs me and holds me, and he says, it's all going to be okay eventually, and we're going to get through this.
And that's you communicating with them too, because people don't know what to do in the middle of your loss. It's really hard. We've done episodes here with cancer patients, they're or a cancer family where their child has died. And, most people say communication is the biggest key. Find out what the person needs, and you might be the kind of person that, just like Chantel said, needs just to know that there's somebody there having nachos with them. You might be the kind of person that, needs therapy, and there is nothing wrong with that. Like, I can't stress that enough. I've gone through therapy at points in my life where I'm like, this is way too heavy. I don't even know how to handle this. You could be the person that ugly cries in your car to let it out or takes long walks, but you have to recognize that you need to do something, even if that's nothing, as Chantel said, like that's just having Jeremiah by her, so that she knows that she has somebody that loves her. But like, there's no timeline of how long that takes, but you do got to figure out what is your action plan so that you can heal from whatever the loss is, that you've just incurred.
Yeah. Yeah. And some days are hard. I suffered a miscarriage with my first pregnancy, and I could not even get myself out of bed. I couldn't go on like that forever. Life goes on, bills come in, and, I suffered what I considered immeasurable loss, and I needed to lay in it and be with it. And then I had to pick myself up and figure out what our next steps were.
Because it does then change everything, right?
It does. It changes your perspective. It made me angry. It made me jealous. And I had to get over that, because it wasn't the pregnant lady at the grocery store's fault that I lost my pregnancy, but I had to work through that.
And probably, I have not suffered a miscarriage. So many women do. More than 50% of women suffer miscarriages. But, I think then you probably had some anxiety throughout pregnancies after that with the girls.
I spent a lot of time at the doctor when I got pregnant with Nora, because it was at any twinge, any flutter, everything worried me.
And understandably so.
But by the time Avery came, I was old hat. So it's a process, where the anxiety lessens little by little each year, each time, each day.
That's interesting that you say that. I had an engagement before I met my husband, and this was when I was going to school at Southern Illinois University, and I was engaged, and I actually moved up here with him. He actually came and is still living in the area, and got up here and then broke things off with me. So I moved up here to a place where I didn't know anyone. He didn't know anyone. My mom and dad were living here at the time. And, within weeks of moving up here with me, he kind of, just went off the grid. So I couldn't even find him, right? Right. So left me. Cell phones, were kind of just starting. This was like, I don't know, 1991, 92, when I think cell phones were starting to come around. So social media was not a thing. I think it was MySpace at the time. I wasn't even a part of that, but I don't even think Facebook was a thing. So there was no social media tracking. I mean, literally just left me. And so that was such an insurmountable loss, because there was no closure. It was obviously my fault because he left me. And it was the first time that I ever went through therapy because I was so alone. I was so afraid mentally of what I would do to myself. I was in such a dark place. I couldn't get out of bed. I went to therapy, still couldn't get out of bed. I had no friends. I had no outlet. I didn't have anybody to talk to. And that for me was a process that took years. I can't even describe it to you. I had nothing. And I just knew that if I didn't talk to someone, I just knew what I was feeling was not good. And I knew that I was nervous about what I was feeling. So, I asked to be on some medication. I did that for a while. I was overweight at the time. I've always struggled with my weight. But what I did then is I tried to, she had said to me, I think you need to exercise. And, she said the endorphins of that can help you. And so then I started running. And I started, when I say running, I really wasn't running, guys. I was like walking up my street and back. I was doing like a quarter of a mile and then a half a mile. And eventually I got to a mile and then I started running and I started getting in a place where the endorphins did kick in and I did start feeling a little better and I started watching what I ate. But man, Chantel, when I tell you, I had no friends. My fiance had now just left me with a wedding that was going to be, 8 months later. And I will tell you, I said to God, why me? Like I was low. And I just kept saying to him, whatever is I'm supposed to learn in this moment, I need you to reveal it. And it took years. But I look back now and I think eventually it brought me my husband, who is an amazing support system for me. Not many men would let me do this charity and like give up my whole entire life to do this, and God put what I needed when I needed, but man, it was not immediate either. So I sat for a really long time in this. So when I say things like, the timeline, it could be years. It really was years for me. I was not in a good mental place. That loss for me almost completely crushed me. It was like a tremendous loss. And, there are people that will say, get up, get going, right? It's a myth about moving on. You just need a little bit of time. You have to stay positive. Everything happens for a reason. Like we hear all of these things and you in the middle of a miscarriage, you don't want to hear any of those things.
Oh no.
What do you mean? Like stay positive. It happens for a reason. What in the world is the reason for a miscarriage?
11, almost 12 years later, I still don't know what the reason is. And I still wonder who that baby would have been. It never goes away. It never does. It's
and there
easier.
Wasn't a reason,
no,
right?
There was no reason. I mean, medically, maybe there would have been something wrong with the baby. I don't know. But that doesn't change the fact that I lost a person. I lost my baby. And again, to this day, I still wonder, what if? Did I do something? Was it my fault? And no matter how many times people tell me no, it doesn't go away.
It doesn't go away. But like you said, were there some medical things that you didn't know about? There's a million different things, but it's this myth that, we need to stay positive. Time, heals all wounds. I think people that will tell you with losses like that, right? Mine was a loss of relationship, but actual physical losses of people. I don't know if it heals any wounds. It just makes the grief different over the years, right?
Every wound leaves a scar.
Yeah.
And it scars forever.
Yeah. And so I think we have to be cognizant of that because of the society we live in. And, healing, it's also not like a straight line, a straight path. It's kind of like this scribble. It's like a scribble. And your scribble looks a lot different than my scribble. But, I think us as a society, watching someone in the loss of a job or a friendship or a miscarriage or a loved one, we have to realize that we can't tell them what they need to be feeling and how they need to be going through it, because we are all unique individuals. And that is something that if you're dealing with somebody that has suffered any type of a loss, you should take a step back and again, communicate and figure out what do they need from me, because how are they processing this loss? We all process it differently. Some people immediately get right back up and, say, all right, I'm good. I need to move on, because that is their healing mechanism. But sitting in the mess is important.
It is. It is. Compartmentalizing all of it and squashing it down doesn't make it go away. It just compounds it.
Right. And then taking these myths and realizing that's exactly what they are. Like, we can't put labels on people that are suffering, and we can't minimize the loss of anything, the loss of a job, the loss of an animal, all of these things that you're like, everybody has losses, and the severity of their loss really depends on their priorities, right? And far be it for me to tell you what your priorities should or shouldn't be. You're your own unique individual.
Absolutely.
And then, finding strength in unexpected, places. Sometimes it's really not about us that are watching somebody go through a loss, doing these grand gestures. Sometimes it's about small actions. And that's part of the reason this charity was formed. When my friend Kathy was going through her cancer diagnosis, one that she ultimately did not win, I didn't even know what the grand gestures would be. To me, it was just, let me make her a meal. Those little small things are really anything but small. So when you feel this, oh my goodness, I don't know what to do, you're at a loss of what you should do for somebody that is suffering. It doesn't need to be a grand gesture. A handwritten card, I can't tell you, I got a handwritten card from a friend after, the loss of that relationship years ago. And I still have that card. Her just saying to me, I don't even know what to say to you, but I am a phone call away, and I will bug you and I will call you. And I was like, thank you. That's really, that's all I need.
Just knowing you're not alone.
Yeah. And the strength can come from, your community. Like, some people need like support groups, and there's plenty of support groups out there in your community. Please find one if you can find one. There's also, strength that comes from a routine. That's what it was for me, getting some structure and starting to work out and getting those endorphins and, getting my revenge body on. Whatever that needs to be for you. But I was like, I'm going to be the best I can be. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes it comes from that. It can come from art or music or writing. It can come from your faith, spirituality. And sometimes there is no one or nothing that can fix it. But for you, maybe that is God or whatever that is that you pour into. But for me, a lot of times that is really where I will say there is not a human being on the face of this earth that can give me any comfort. And God, I am asking you to protect my heart, because I am not okay. My soul is not okay. My whole being is not okay. So, you have to figure out, like, where can I find my strength? Who can I find my strength in? Where are those friends? And they're out there. And if you don't have them, then you know what? You need to start, pruning your bushes, as Krista Jones likes to say, because sometimes there's a lot of thorns that are choking this actual bush that can grow into something beautiful. And you need to get yourself at least a friendship or two that are not your fair weathered friends, that are I will get down in the dirt with you, and I will hold your hand while you cry, and I will not judge you, because this loss is the loss of a job, and you're taking this way harder than maybe I would. Like, I'm not judging you for that, because I understand that to you, this is so important. Like, we need to find those friendships, especially as we get older in life, right?
Yeah. And, we've said this so many times. Technology and social media has made life so isolated. We're all so busy. We're also running around, and we're seeking out that connection on a device. And you need that in-person connection. You need those people in your life.
How cold is that? Any of us can say anything we want when we're behind a keyboard, right?
It's always thoughts and prayers.
Yeah. And honestly, I just want to know, like, I want you to physically say, I am praying for you. I am here for you. Let's go for a walk. Come to my church. Let's sit on a bench. That's the actions that we really need in the middle of loss. And we need to be able to give to other people. We need to be able to give them our time. We're all very busy. So most of us understand that if you're giving a half hour, wow, thank you for carving out a half hour for me. You love me enough to find that time, during my day. And then, I think some people, like you said earlier, when one door closes, another opens. I think people struggle with that because there is an identity shift that comes with loss. No matter what it is, we are then through this loss trying to figure out, well, who we are. And what we thought, our lives were going to be is no more. So sometimes you have to look at that as, I have this unplanned opportunity now. Right?
That is very optimistic.
Thank you.
I like that.
But I like to be optimistic. I don't like to live in the pessimistic. Like, loss is very painful, but the loss of something, not someone, but the loss of maybe a relationship or a job, or a divorce, the loss of these things can create space for something healthy. So what is that? Can you find that? Can you try something new, even if it scares you with the loss of a job, right? Like you took a leap because you went to school for something completely different than being Krista Jones's not only assistant extraordinaire, but fundraising queen and event planner and techie Chantel and superhero blow up wearing person running around the streets. And like, you didn't even go to school with that. So you made a career change, which was the loss of what you might have went to school for something else. I mean, that's scary.
It was horrifying. And, I have to say the hardest part for me was telling my family, because I went to school, I got a master's degree for a career, and my biggest fear was disappointing my parents. And they have been nothing but supportive. But I mean, coming here that first day and having no idea what was, I knew what was expected of me. I knew what we were doing, but like no idea what every day was going to bring and how I was going to accomplish the goals that I needed to accomplish here. That was horrifying. And, thank God my husband was supportive because I went home every day and I was anxiety ridden. And if I was actually meeting your expectations and the expectations that, the board has and the charity has, I don't want to be the loose wheel in this machine.
But, I for a while kind of felt, oh my gosh, this would be a great partnership. And I knew getting you in here. So sometimes when, you let go of one job for another job, like you should think of it like, somebody has a lot of faith in me, where I'm going. Like they really see potential in me. Maybe I'm not seeing. And you're right though, when your parents spend a lot of money on your college education and you spend a lot of money on your college education, I went for communications and, I did that for many, many years. And then I really felt this strong calling, leave that by the wayside. You have to form this charity, same kind of thing, which wasn't even in existence. And, thank goodness for the support of Christian. Thank goodness for the relationship that did not work out, that brought me him, that brought me here. Like God already saw that plan for me. And my life was like, I'm going to be on TV and, I'm going to be in New York City and I'm going to be, this great reporter. And honestly, when 9/11 hit and I, actually saw people jumping off of the buildings in the city and the horrendous news story and asking 9/11 families how they felt. Like for me, I was like, oh my gosh, I got it wrong. I don't want to do this. I got it all wrong. I don't want to do this. So, I made also like a huge career change, but one that eventually brought me peace. Like God was already like, I know exactly where I'm going to bring you. And at the end of the day, right? It's all about, are we in peace? And sometimes somebody firing you from a job or you making this leap of faith is because your peace is not being protected. And you need to go somewhere where your peace is being protected. So like all of these things, can help you start again, because beginning again is scary. So in that, you got to figure out what you can control, right? Chantel couldn't control how I was going to feel about, the work that she was doing. But like, I already had the faith in her. So like sometimes you got to think, well, somebody does want me and they want me to, and they see this potential. And like, you got to think about that. And, you got to realize that embracing the uncertainty is part of that process.
It is. You just got to take that leap.
You do. And honestly, a lot of times after you take it, you're like, oh, this is what was waiting for me. Why didn't I do it earlier? I mean, I don't know, Chantel, if that's how you're feeling, but I hope so.
Oh, here, yeah. But like if you brought me somewhere and told me to leap blindly and I didn't see the bottom, yeah, no.
Right. But, that's the thing. So here's the thing. It really is the power of perspective too. You are going to go through hardships. There's no way for us to get beyond that, right? And hardships are going to force clarity. Because what's going to happen there is when you have a hard loss, first of all, your perspective, what truly matters, the people that show up in the middle of that hardship is going to be something that's important, and what's really worth fighting for. That is what a hardship shows us. That is what a loss shows us. It does show us all of these things, and we get to, in the middle of such enormous loss, get our perspective straight, right? Every day you and I are feeding people with a cancer diagnosis. So every single day I am very careful what goes on my social media page. Not much does on my personal, because when I see you on my social media page posting a lot of negative and how you have a headache and how your kids are driving you nuts, and when you are a very negative person and then putting that out there on social media, I think you have no idea of the perspective that you really should have. You have no idea what a loss really looks like, or what a cancer diagnosis really looks like, and a mom that isn't even certain if she's going to be here next year for her children. So these issues that you might be complaining about, of course, there might be stuff that drives us crazy with our kids and all of that, but maybe that's conversations that go on with your besties, or conversations with your husbands, or conversations with yourself. And, the words that you write on social media, you got to really be careful, because there are people judging it, and there are people that are going through some really tough stuff that read those words and look at it as callous, or look at it as, not having your pulse on what truly is important. And I'm not saying you don't ever post that stuff. Of course, we all go on these rants and stuff, but, think about it. There are places for our critiques and for our complaints. And there are times really when, maybe that doesn't go on social media because maybe your life really work that through. Maybe it's not quite as bad as you're thinking. So we learn through hardships, and we learn why it's okay if you're not there yet, right? That's a big deal for people, I think. And I put down this quote a little bit earlier, and I need to find it because it was such a great quote. And it was, rebuilding doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes it's deep breaths and tiny victories. And it's days when you don't want to do anything. It happens when you say yes to life, even if it's all uncomfortable. So I read that and I thought, wow, that's really true. And I think realizing there's light at the end of a tunnel, but right, it's a tunnel. I'm not telling you there's light at the end of your day. There's light at the end of the tunnel, which really, if you think about that, could mean tunnels can be relatively long and relatively dark and relatively scary. And we could be underwater, at the Delaware. What's that tunnel called?
Oh, I don't know. That scares me.
But it's long.
Some people are afraid of bridges. Me,
it's long, and you're underwater for, I don't even know how many miles, but it's a lot of miles.
Yes, it is.
And right, you're underwater for a while, but going into that tunnel that you are coming out on the other side, and it will be light. And for those of us that are afraid of those tunnels, eventually you're going to be able to go, oh my gosh, thank you. I see the light. I see the end, and it is going to be there, but it's different for everybody, right? And sometimes that's, facing pain and facing uncertainty. And we just got to keep in mind that all of us have a different journey to walk.
Yeah. And we're all going to get through these things differently in our own way, in the way that we're meant to.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. And what we're saying is sit in your mess, however uncomfortable it is. Shut off social media if you have to, because the I'm fine, it's all fine movement isn't necessarily the best mental health movement for all of us. And, we have to talk about that because, loss actually gives you stress, right? So anytime you have this major life change, it can trigger the body's fight or flight. Chantel, I think you and I have discussed this before, but it's a true thing. It increases your cortisol levels and it contributes to feelings of unease. And in the Lancet Psychiatry study that came out, I think it was like in 22, it said that they found that from unexpected life events, like a sudden job loss, the loss of a loved one, it is linked to 80% higher anxiety and sleep disturbances. So think about that. Your anxiety in the middle of a loss can be 80% higher of a trigger than just any normal day, 80% more sleep disturbances. So now you're not working on an 8-hour sleep. You're working on way much less sleep. And we know what that does to the body and to cortisol. So all the things that you're feeling are real things that you've got to sit in, and you've got to take these deep breaths and you've got to absorb, because your outward pain absolutely contributes to inward fatigue and feelings and issues that you can't ignore, because your body is saying, I am going through something. Stop. We need to figure this out. And a lot of us, we just don't do it.
Yeah. So I suffered what I consider one of the biggest loss of my life this fall. I'm not getting it into details because there's a lot of personal stuff in there. And I didn't sleep for weeks. I didn't eat right. I remember my husband taking my kids to the gem show at Gold's Gym, and I was in bed under the covers, just loathing daylight. And that door closed in that time period. And I'll tell you, that door is still closed. I haven't left that room yet. I've processed a lot of things in this time, but it's still there. It's still fresh. And so now that's September to now. I don't know how many months that is, but I'm still moving forward, but I still feel those things and they're still in there, so this is me telling you it isn't quick, and this might go on for the rest of my life. I don't know. But it isn't a quick fix. It isn't an easy road. And don't be ashamed if it doesn't feel better a week or a month or 6 months later.
And I think when you say closing a door, people think your emotions should shut off. No, you're just maybe closing that relationship. You're closing something, but those emotions are still there to deal with. It's not that when you close that door, you're supposed to go, okay, it's good, I'm done. Now you got to deal with whatever is in that room, like you said.
Yeah. Yep. And I'm just waiting for a window or another door or something to open. But, I'm sitting in there and I'm meditating.
And I am praying for that for you, because that is going to happen for you, because you are Chauntel.
Thank you.
You are loved, as the rest of you are. And I want to thank you guys for kind of just coming out and sitting with us today, because this is a topic that is really vulnerable and it's really hard for all of us. I know that right now it might not feel like you're just standing in the wreckage of a life that you didn't choose, and it might feel like you're staring at all these pieces, they don't fit anymore, but it just might not feel good. Maybe you're just tired, and maybe you're angry, and maybe you don't even know where to begin, but I want you to hear this. You are not broken. You are not beyond repair. You are still here, and that means, girl, guy, your story is not over. So if today feels heavy, just focus on the next step. Maybe not the whole staircase. Maybe it's just one step at a time. And if you can't even take a step, then just breathe. That is enough for today. The world needs you in it. So you need to process this mess, and you need to find a way to just breathe. Thank you for spending time with Chantel and I on Exhausted Sparrows Unite. You can find out more about what the charity does on our podcast at sparrows-charity.org. Until next time, be kind with yourself. You're doing way better than you might think.